Good morning, guys. Today we're going to do a read aloud like we normally do in class. We are going to read another Patricia Polacco book called Remembering Vera. We're super fortunate Patricia Polacco is allowing us to record this story since all that's happening with school and digital learning. So I really want to affirm her for allowing teachers to do that. As I'm reading the book, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Make sure that you pause the video, answer the question, and then go back to the video and unpause it. Remember, when you write answers to the questions, they need to be in complete sentences. That means a capital at the beginning, ending punctuation. It makes sense. And try your best to have neat handwriting and good spelling. So our book is Remembering Vera. For Nancy and Jack and Commander Master Chief Sagendorf, a note about the story. This is a very personal story and dear to my heart. It's about a very special little dog that I came to know many years ago. The first time I saw her was back in 1962. Shortly after I had graduated from high school, one of my relatives was stationed on the U.S. Coast Guard base at what was then Government Island, on the western tip of Alameda in the San Francisco Bay. I lived in nearby Oakland, and he had offered to take me on a tour of the base. We were walking near one of the barracks when I spied an ancient little yellow dog. It was apparent that she had given birth to so many litters of pups that her once muscular little body was now round and sagging in the middle. But when I heard her story and how she came to be there at base, I was convinced what an amazing dog she was. Our first question, number 1, is going to be, what is your prediction for why the dog is so amazing? Think about this photo and the cover photo. We can use the sentence stem. I predict the dog is amazing because... Go ahead and pause the video, write it, and come back. What will the old man say? One of the guys piped up. Davy, if the old man catches her in here, he'll order her to be taken to the pound, and you know what will happen to her there, another said. Well, I'm a-keepin' her, Davy Bunch said defiantly. We're just going to have to hide her and keep her hidden from the commander, he insisted. So from that day on, all of them agreed to keep her hidden on the base. Davy named her Vera after one of his favorite aunts. Sure enough, just about all the guys in the barracks fell hard for that little dog. Pretty soon, she was standing watches with them. She'd march the quad and do drills with them. She stood at attention during morning reveille and even went out on the bay aboard the buoy tenders. Our question number 2 is, why do you think the commander of this base, the commander is like the person who's in charge of it, might not want a dog on base? You can use the sentence stem. The commander might not want a dog because... Pause the video and come back. Okay, now that you've paused and written that answer, our next question for this page is, in the sentence, sure enough, just about all the guys in the barracks fell hard for that little dog. This is an example of figurative language. Figurative language means it's not literally happening, but the author uses words to help you better understand something. So that word fell hard, they're not literally falling. What is the meaning of that figurative language phrase? For number 3, the words fell hard means that they blank, and we're thinking about the men with the dog. So what does that mean if they're falling hard for the dog? Pause and come back. Just as sure as there are waves in the sea, Vera became a constant fixture in the barracks. All the boys loved playing with her, but most especially Davy. He even taught her to do amazing tricks. Watch this, fellas. She can fetch anything, Davy crowed. Then he'd throw her a toy. Nothing was too far or too high or too difficult for Vera. She could run the fastest, jump the highest, and even swim the hardest just to retrieve her toy. We're going to look at figurative language again on this page. Just as sure as there are waves in the sea, Vera became a constant fixture in the barracks. So our subject is Vera. We're supposed to understand something about Vera with this phrase. I want you to think, what is the meaning of that phrase, just as sure as there are waves in the sea? So our sentence stem for number 4 is going to be, Just as sure as there are waves in the sea means that Vera blank. Explain it in your own words what they mean by that. One blustery day, a distress call came into the squawk box. Mayday, mayday, we're crashed on the rocks, we're sinking fast. An urgent voice rang out. We're a mile off the Vera National Marine Sanctuary, the voice went on. Davy and his company mustered and raced to the dock and boarded one of the search and rescue cutters. Vera was right behind him. That day, the old man happened to be aboard, pulling a surprise inspection. Cast off, mates, lives hang in the balance, he bellowed. With the cutter raced across the bay and out under the Golden Gate Bridge, and then took a heading due west, bound for the Farallones National Marine Sanctuary. Just at that moment, a terrible squall came up, and the seas were high and choppy. When they finally got to the disabled boat, it was listing to port and taking on water fast. The folks aboard looked scared out of their wits. Hurry up, men! Those folks need rescuing! Put on lively steps now! The old man boomed. The trouble was that the rough seas, the fierce winds, and the rip currents made it impossible for the cutter to come alongside the sinking boat. We'll have to bust them a line, then we'll rig a bowsman's chair, and we'll pull them off that vessel onto the cutter, the old man roared. But when they aimed that line cannon at the deck of the stricken sailboat and fired it, it missed. Again and again, time after time, it missed the deck. The winds were just too strong. It was exactly at that moment that Vera appeared at the old man's feet and started barking. What in the name of Billy's barnacle is this? He hollered as he glared at Vera. I want us to look at those words, Billy's barnacle. What is this an example of? Remember, we have figurative language and then those tools that authors use to make their writing interesting. Is this a simile, saying something is like something else to better understand it? Is Billy's barnacle a hyperbole, an exaggeration of something? Is it onomatopoeia, a sound word? Is it personification, giving something that's not human qualities? Or is it alliteration, the same beginning sound to make the sentence sound interesting? Go ahead and write for your next question. Billy's barnacles is an example of blank. Pause and come back. Everyone on the crew stiffened and looked at Davy. He saluted and he quickly spoke. This here little dog here is how we're going to get a lifeline to those folks, sir, Davy piped up. The old man glared at them both. This here little dog can jump the farthest I ever seen, and she's a strong swimmer. The old man snorted. She's already in a vest, and we can throw a line to her, and she'll deliver it right to them, Davy said as he pointed at the sinking boat. The old man glowered at Davy and Vera. Them folks are running out of time, sir, Davy pleaded. The old man gave another snort. All right, we'll give it a try, he grumbled. Davy threw a line to Vera and gave her the sign, and Vera leaped into the churning waters. Davy's heart pounded with fear. I want us to look at this phrase with imagery. Davy's heart pounded with fear. What does it mean? Davy's heart pounded with fear means that he blank. And then I want you to explain why his heart is pounding with fear. Davy's heart is pounding with fear because, so you should have two sentences. Heart pounding with fear means, and it is pounding with fear because. Pause and come back. Vera paddled with fierce determination towards the wrecked sailboat. It was as if she knew that she was the last hope that those people had. Everyone, including the old man, was cheering her on. Time after time, the waves would hide Vera in a shroud. She'd disappear only to surface again, paddling ever nearer the distressed boat. Suddenly, she vanished beneath the waves. Everyone fell silent. All that could be heard was the howling of the wind. There she is, she's aboard, Davy cried out. A collective cheer went up that probably could have been heard all the way back to San Francisco. Sure enough, she had ridden a wave right onto the deck. The line was quickly tied to their mainmast, and the cutter sent over the bosun's chair with two frogmen. One by one, the wayward sailors were brought to the safety of the cutter. Vera was the last to come aboard. Just as she did, the sailboat sank before their eyes. We're going to look at the figurative language phrase. A collective cheer went up that probably could have been heard all the way back to San Francisco. Remember, figurative language isn't literal. It's used to help explain something. In this case, the author's trying to explain the collective cheer. Remember, cheering is like when they're like, yeah, good job, because of what Vera did. So I want you to write, the figurative language about collective cheer tells us that blank. So what is it trying to get us to understand about that cheer in your own words? Also, what type of figurative language sentence is this? This is an example of blank. Is it alliteration, same beginning sound? Is it a hyperbole, an exaggeration of something? Is it a simile, saying something is like something else? Or is it onomatopoeia, some sort of sound word? Go ahead and write those 2 questions for your next one. Pause and come back. Well, aren't you some kind of hero? The old man cooed as he wrapped that wet pooch in a nice warm blanket. From that day on, he too was in love with Vera. She started spending a lot of time in his office and passed sunny afternoons on his special pillow on his desk. Pretty soon, the 2 of them were inseparable. The old man even made her the official mascot of the base. Yes, sir, she'd follow him every day to the mess hall, even took her on family vacations. She was his guest of honor at the Admiral's Ball on Treasure Island. She was almost a permanent fixture on rescue missions. She and the old man had newspaper articles written about them and were even on TV. By golly, that little Vera was putting the Coast Guard on the map. But what really made her a household name were her courageous actions the day the Sausalito ferry capsized in the middle of the bay. Okay, guys, we're about halfway through with the story. We're going to go ahead and stop for today.